Hi guys, I thought I'd do a little bit of a different video for you all today. Well, this isn't going to go up today, to be honest. It's going to be a bit of a long form video because I thought I would take you guys along on the journey of knitting my wave sweater by SPEKTAKELSTRIK. Now, if you watched any of my podcasts recently, then you'll know that I decided to alter mine and not knit it as a raglan. I'm going to knit mine as a drop shoulder, which is going to involve quite a lot of maths and sort of sorting things out and altering bits of the pattern. And so I thought probably best to kind of update you guys as I go, so that there's a little bit more kind of information and things like that in case anybody else wanted to alter theirs to be a drop shoulder. And also just so I can kind of keep you updated like as I go, so I don't forget anything. So yeah, I did cast this on already, and I've realised I'm going to have to pull this back because essentially it's just going to turn out too big. I don't think I had enough stitches kind of like left on reserve for the neck, and so it's like really tight along here, and then there's loads of stitches for the shoulders, and also it's just giving me too much fabric because by the time I had finally kind of got to the end of this wave, to make it match the raglan in the pattern, so that I would then have enough room in the body to do 2 more waves. This was just going to be far too long. My underarm was going to be like down here, which is not really what I want, to be honest. I don't want to be drowning in my jumper. So I'm going to get cast on, and I'm just going to take you along on the journey of making this jumper. I keep getting really distracted by the sun like popping out and sort of shining on the wall over there, so I'm really sorry about that. But yeah, let's get these cast back on. I am knitting size 1, but I think most of like the actual maths and everything that I am going to talk about throughout changing the measurements in this, changing the construction in this from a raglan to a drop shoulder will be fairly kind of standard across all sizes. You can take the maths and obviously like apply it to the stitch counts and everything that are in the pattern for each size, which there are not a lot of sizes in this pattern, to be honest. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'm gonna get cast on. It is currently Tuesday the 11th of March, so we'll see how long this actually takes me to turn these balls of yarn into a drop shoulder jumper using a raglan pattern. But yeah, let's get cast on. A few hours and I have made some progress. So you saw me casting back on and then obviously knitting some of the colour work. I had to do a little bit more maths to kind of work out where I needed to start my chart, because obviously when I've changed it from being a raglan, when you do the raglan obviously you can just start and then you just continue knitting the chart all the way around. Hello doggo, get down. And with a drop shoulder, obviously this dog is obsessed with tripods. Come on, off you go. Go, go, go. He loves to like sit in the middle of the tripod and then like whack it constantly, which is really annoying. But anyway, yeah, because I changed it from a raglan where obviously you just work the chart all the way around and everything's at the same level, to a drop shoulder where it's not all at the same level, I obviously had to move where I started the chart so that it was going to match on both sides. And so what I kind of worked out is, this is a really good example, to be honest. So you see how this shoulder seam comes down like this? I have worked out that I'm going to need to do my chart so that it starts around about here, but that means it's going to have to come across. So my colour work is going to have to like transverse this seam, which means that I had to start my colour work in the short rows, and then I'm going to have to start my colour work at different points on the shoulder, which is fine because I think it's going to work out, or I might do some duplicate stitching afterwards, so just so that I can kind of make it look as kind of consistent as possible. But this is where we are for the moment. So this is obviously the top of the back neck, and then these are the short rows. So I've added in my colour work as I go. The back of this is so chaotic. This is what the back looks like at the moment. So I'm doing my like intarsia and stranded colour work method, where I'm just leaving the yarn when I get to the end of where the chart is, and then finishing the row with the colour that I'm just working on. And I had to kind of work out where the chart was, so I kind of like have ignored most of the chart and worked out where I needed to start so that all of the charts match up under the underarm and across the body. So I basically had to work out where the chart starts for the body and then take off the underarm stitches to work out where I needed to start for the back piece. But it's worked out fine. I think this is going really well. I need to kind of like run out the door now to go and pick up my daughter, but I am going to work on this a little bit more this evening. So I'll catch you up in the morning and show you my progress. Good morning, guys. Yeah, it's the next day. So that is too hot. This is where I am now. So I finished the back panel last night. So it's like one repeat of the colourwork chart, essentially. So I've got 6 centimetres worth of short rows in there, and then the back is now measuring, I don't have a tape measure in here. Oh, I've got a ruler. And then yeah, the back from the end of the short rows to the end of the piece is measuring just under 13, so about 12.5 centimetres, 5 inches, which should give me enough armhole depth to pick up the stitches for the armhole on the front and back, to give me enough stitches to follow the pattern for the sleeves. I might have to chop some of the length off, but to be honest, actually no, I don't think I will, because obviously with the raglan it comes all the way down. So yeah, I think we're going to be fine on the sleeve length. But yes, that is my progress so far. I'm really happy with how it's turning out. I think the waves are really cool. And these are the floats. I'm sorry, the needles are like clanging against the table. But these are my floats. I just think they're really cool. And I can't believe how quickly this is working up. Like that is literally one evening's, well, after the short rows, which you saw me do yesterday afternoon, that is one evening's work. And I went to bed early last night. And we ordered pizza, so we had dinner late. So it was mainly kind of like, I'd say what, 2 hours work. It really was not very much at all. And it's because the gauge on this is so big. It's 16 stitches by 20 rows. And I'm used to working on like 25 stitches and nearly 40 rows. So it's really flying. I don't think this is going to take me very long at all if I'm like as hyper focused on it as I am now. I'm hopefully going to get some work done on that today, but I'm not sure. But yeah, that is pretty much the update for now. Afternoon. I think the last thing I filmed was probably the snow this morning, so I'm not doing very well on this vlog. But I've just been sat here in my office doing some like odd bits on some knits that needed sorting out. So I've just finally got around to sewing the buttons back on my Daft Days. And I'm gonna get going on a little bit of my wave sweater because I've got a little bit of extra time before I need to go and pick up the little one from school. So I think the last thing I showed you was that I had finished the back, and last night, to be honest, I completely forgot that I was vlogging, and I was just like, oh, I really want to work on this, and just, to be honest, completely forgot. But I picked up the first front. So that is now looking like this, and this is where I'm going to like do the duplicate stitch to finish off this wave so it matches up with the other ones. It's not really very much at all, but I think it's just going to elevate the sweater just a little bit. So yeah, I need to get going on that, but I think I'll do that probably at the end when I can sort of spend a little bit more time on it and just do all of the duplicate stitch at the end, and like do it all in one go essentially. But essentially I've done my maths, my fronts. So I've picked up my shoulder stitches, and that's the wrong side. I've picked up my shoulder stitches and I've got to do 16 rounds of straight stockinette. So I think this is 8. No, this is 10. So I've done 10 rows, I've got to do another 6, and then I'm going to do some increases for the neckline, and that is where I'm going to start my colour work. Also my voice is going, which is, you know, great considering I'm going to a yarn festival in like 2 days. Just got to the point now where I have finished the first front. So this camera is really on the wonk, I do apologise. So if I put my arm in here, this isn't going to sit all that well because it's kind of, like, it's obviously not being supported on the other side, so it's kind of flapping about, but this will obviously sit like this, and this is going to lengthen a bit in blocking as well, so I'm not overly worried that it's kind of sitting quite high up on where my t-shirt is. And also this t-shirt has got a really like big armhole depth, the sleeves on it are like ridiculous, so yeah, ignore that. But if I get my hair out of the way, this is where my front is sitting, and this will obviously stretch out in blocking once I've got the sleeves on and everything. So I'm at the point where once I've knit the other side I will be doing some cast on stitches to join the two fronts. And I did actually end up elongating this section ever so slightly, just because before it was sitting up here and that was going to make my neckline really, really high, and I didn't really want that. I forgot to kind of think about the fact that the actual pattern has like a funnel neck, and I don't think I want a funnel neck. I think I want to do like a double folded neckband, just to make it a little bit more versatile, because I feel like a funnel neck's going to be like really hot and sort of itchy if it gets warm. Whereas a double folded neckband is going to give me a little bit more kind of ease of wear for more situations like weather-wise and things. So yeah, I've elongated my front ever so slightly to give me a little bit more space in the neckband, and I need to get going on the other shoulder. So it's like 2:30 now. I need to leave the house at 3, so I'm going to see if I can get the other shoulder done and then get it joined so I can kind of show you what that looks like. But I think once I've got these shoulders done, it's really going to sort of start to take shape and kind of look more like a jumper and less like a creature from the bog. But yeah, let's get this other shoulder knit and then I can stop waffling on. Good morning everybody. It is a Monday. Last thing I filmed was on Thursday. Also yeah, we're all sick. My daughter's had a cold for like the past week or so, and we have just about come down with it, which is lovely. So my husband's working from home today, hence why I'm filming up here and not downstairs, because I probably would have just sat on the sofa and done some work on this. But this is where we are for the moment. I joined the fronts, so they are now in the round, and then I've got the neckline going, so I think I can just about put this on. Wearing my hat indoors again because I don't know what it is about getting a cold, but my head always just feels really cold, and it's a bit of a head cold, to be honest. But anyway, yeah, this is what we're looking like for the neckline. It's going to be quite a high neckline, but to be honest, because it's a drop shoulder, I'm well aware of the fact that these are obviously going to pull out, so it's going to be quite wide, and I don't want it to be too low, so I've kept it quite high up here, and I've had to deviate from my initial plan of having the tops of the waves hit the bottom of the neckband, because otherwise it's just going to be too low at the front for the join. So yeah, they're slightly above, but to be honest, I don't think that's too much of an issue. I might even go in and duplicate stitch the tops of this wave into the ribbing when I get to that point, just to make it look like it's not just being cut off by the collar. But I have to see. I think I'm just going to stick to a 1x1 rib. The pattern has 1x1 twisted rib, but I think we're all aware of the fact that I do not enjoy twisted rib very much. So I think I'm going to go for just a standard 1x1 rib, just keep it casual, and I think it's going to fit perfectly fine with the drop shoulder look. But yeah, I thought this morning I would just quickly show you all how I do my colourwork flat, and then I think I'm just going to settle down probably on the sofa, maybe catch up on some YouTube or something, and just kind of take it easy today. We are all feeling pretty rubbish, to be honest. But yeah. So essentially, to knit my colourwork on the wrong side, what I would do is when I'm finishing up my right side row, I will leave my yarn for my contrast colour, or whatever colour I'm not carrying to the end of the row, where it is, just hanging out there on the last stitch. And then I'll start my row as normal, just purling across with the yarn that I've used to finish the last row, if that's what I need for the next row, which in this case it is. And then when I get to this next stitch, I'm just gonna pull this original yarn across this way and grab the new yarn from underneath, so they're crossing over just like this to kind of wrap them around each other. And then I'll just purl the stitches that I need to in the new yarn. So essentially crossing those yarns over just there is wrapping them around each other like you would usually when you're working an intarsia project. And then I'll just grab my main colour yarn again and just make sure that those floats are nice and loose, just by making sure that all the stitches are as spread out as they possibly could be on my right needle. And I'll just carry on going, and I just carry on working across like this until I get to the end of the row, and then I'll just leave the last stitch of the colour that I am not going to finish the row with where it is and pick it up again on the next right side row. Okay, so I'm going to go and settle myself down on the sofa and grab some tea, and I think I'm going to do some work on this before I get some more bits and bobs done today. But this is my progress so far, and I now need to just keep on working down the front until I get to the point where I finish the chart, and then I'm going to be joining the underarms, and that's going to be my new kind of test to see if I've managed to work out the colourwork so that it matches up on both the front and the back, so then I can just continuously work the chart round like you have to do in the main body of the pattern. Joined the fronts and backs, and we are looking like this now. Someone just came up the stairs. So here we are, and I thought I'd just do a quick try on before we have to run out the door. Got 2 minutes. Oh, only lost 1 stitch. That's quite good. Okay, so here we are so far. So much hair in the way. And I've got about 1 inch under the arm, and then obviously it's rolling up really badly here on the shoulder, but it's going to stretch out, I think, quite a lot in blocking, and also it's going to sort of grow downwards. But I think I've got a good underarm spacing where it's not going to be too big, but it's going to have enough room for me to like get t-shirts, long sleeve tops and things underneath. And yeah, I'm happy with how the neckline's looking. So now essentially all I've got to do is just carry on knitting to pattern, and just do this set of waves and then one more, and then it's going to be just the ribbing on the bottom. So I'm going to run out the door and go and pick up the little one from school, and I'll catch up with you all once I've maybe finished this stripe, or maybe when I finish these balls of yarn, we shall see. But very happy with how this is turning out so far. Been a few days and I have been working up a storm on this jumper. If I pop you there, then you can see. Apologies for the messy cupboard. I'm going to apologise for it every time it's in shot because it's awful and we need to make a door, but we've just been busy on other things. So yeah, this is the progress that I have made. So I've picked up the sleeve. I had to do a little bit of jiggery pokery because it turns out that I worked out the amount of rows I was going to have to do for the front and backs wrong. I forgot to look into the pattern and look at the full stitch count for the sleeve, not just the stitch count for the sleeve when you split for the underarms, which obviously doesn't take into account the stitches that you cast on for the underarm. And so I took the amount of stitches you would have for the sleeve before you cast on for the underarm, and then took the amount of stitches that you cast on for the underarm away from that. So I calculated my pickup rate to have fewer stitches than I actually needed. But I just picked up some more stitches along the underarm so that I had the full stitch count for the sleeve that was written in the pattern. But I'm now worried that it's going to sort of bulge at the here and at the underarm. So I am going to put this on some tubing and I'm going to chuck it in the wash. But I think that's going to be the best option for now, because although it's not bulging at the moment, obviously I thought that was a bulge, but I think that's just because this stitch here is a little bit loose. So I need to let the floats kind of settle down. But yeah, although it's not bulging at the moment, obviously the colourwork needs to relax and stretch out. It's all very bunched up at the moment. And so I think to avoid being disappointed when I've finished everything and having to pull it back, I'm going to block it now, and then there's less to pull back if I have to. And yeah, it's going to be less devastating. So let's go and put this in the bath and get it outside in the beautifully warm weather to dry, and then I can come back and kind of reassess it. Oh, you're on the wonk there, aren't you? There we go. Okay, it has been a full weekend since the last time I filmed anything to do with this vlog, but this took a fair while longer to dry than I expected. But let's do a quick try on. This is what it's looking like post blocking. So all of my colourwork has blocked itself out and is laying nicely. This bit is still looking a bit funky down here where the laddering is happening. So I think what I might do is just do like, you know, like in a bit like in like ladder back jacquard. Is that what it's called? You know, when there's like it's almost like a knit stitch running down the back of colourwork. I might try and do that just to tighten up my floats a little bit, but I think it's just because my colourwork is quite loose. But to be honest, I'd rather have loose floats than tight floats, because you can always do things to kind of go in and tighten up floats, but you can't make them looser like after the fact. But either way, let's try this on. My office is a complete tip, so please do apologise. No, I do apologise for that. But yeah, let's get going on trying this on. Oh, it's really blocked out, hasn't it? Okay, the neckline has not widened up too much. I think this is going to be fine once we get some ribbing going on. And I'm liking the sleeve how it is. I like the armhole depth. I think I've worked that out quite well, because this t-shirt is quite baggy. It's got like quite low and wide sleeves, and I've still got, I'd say, about an inch between the bottom of this sleeve seam on this t-shirt and the like bottom of the yoke depth on this. I've lost all concept of words, but yeah, I think this has worked out really, really nicely. I like the sleeve being somewhat baggier as well. I think it's gonna sort of skim nicely over the arm. But yeah, I'm happy with this. Oh dear, there's a bag there. And what, one more load of this is going to bring it down to, yeah, so I think that the length is going to be quite nice. It's going to be long, but that's kind of what I expected. But oh, I'm so happy with this. If I angle you down like this, again, excuse the state of my office, and if I stand over here, then I should be able to put like the pre-blocking view over there. So yeah, I think this is looking good. I am pretty happy, guys. Yeah. Okay. So next thing to do, I've actually left it really late today to try and to film this bit, but this evening, once I have done like the school run and dinner and all that kind of thing, and I'm sitting down to do my knitting in the evening, I'm going to be putting this back on some needles. And I'm going to finish off this sleeve so I can get that off the needles. And then I am going to do the neckband, I think, and see what I can get going with on that. But yeah, I am really happy with how this is turning out. So yeah, next we'll be just putting it back on needles. Oh, I love it. Everybody, it is the 31st of March. I wanted to get this project done before the end of the month, and I think it's fairly fair to say that that is not going to happen. I've just been knitting other things. Things have taken longer because this has been quite an involved project. I've had to frog bits of it. It's just not happened, but that's fine. Because I am now on the home stretch. It's just been a really busy month. There's just been a lot going on. And so, yeah, I've just not had as much knitting time as I thought I would. I mean, to be honest, it's not like I've done an insignificant amount of progress, but either way, I will show you. I'm also not sure how long this vlog is. I probably waffled on for like an hour and a half, so if you're still here, then thank you. But, okay, so this is where we are. I have done a fair bit since I last showed this to you, but I have finished the body because I kind of was suffering massively from like decision fatigue, and that was all completely based on this neckline. So the pattern says that you need to have a certain amount of stitches for your neckline, obviously to cast on at the top. I didn't do that because I'm doing a drop shoulder, and I ended up with 4 less stitches when I picked up my stitches, and I thought that that would be fine because it was sitting so wide before, but it's not. So I'll try this on for you in a second. So yeah, I need to pull back this neckline, and I'm going to re-knit it. I'm going to re-pick up the stitches, and I'm going to re-knit it on a 4.5mm, and I think that should be fine. And I'm also only going to do 9 centimeters of 1x1 rib to give me a 4.5cm collar once I've folded it, instead of a 5cm once I've folded it, so not knit the full 10 centimeters. Just because I think it's sitting a little bit too high. I kind of want it to be sort of similar to this, and it's currently sitting like way up, which is fine, because I'm going to pull it back anyway. So yeah, whilst I was making decisions on that, I finished off the last bit of the colourwork on the body, and I also added on the ribbing, and I did the tubular bind off for the bottom of the body, and I pulled back what I had on the sleeve. So I had done a bit of ribbing here. I pulled that back, and I finished the end of the 3rd wave on the sleeve so that I would have a complete load of waves. So I just need to today get the ribbing done on this sleeve, and then I might start the 2nd sleeve, or I might do the neckline. But first, let me try this on so that you can kind of see what I mean about the whole neckline issue. Okay, so obviously I've cut off my head, but you know, this is kind of where we are once I'd finished the body. It is quite long, but to be honest, this bit is going to grow, so I think we're going to lose a little bit of length. It's kind of just sitting, this is not the best way to show it because obviously I'm not wearing like proper trousers, I'm wearing dungarees, but it's just sitting like at the very top, like my hip bone starts here, so yeah, it's longer than like the cropped jumpers that I've been doing recently, but to be honest I'm quite happy with that. And the sleeves are pretty long, but to be honest I'm okay with that because I kind of have the thought that with the way that the weather is going at the moment, I'm going to end up wearing this as sort of like an outer layer, and so I want something that's going to kind of cover my hands a bit more because it is pretty chilly on the fingers at the moment, but it's not quite cold enough that I'm going to need something this chunky and a coat. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about with the neckline. It's definitely sitting up much higher than I really wanted to. And yes, it will block out, but because the majority of my body is blocked, it's not going to block out that much more than it is already, because that's kind of already sitting how it would be. So I'm going to re-pick it up, and I'm going to knit it on a 4.5, and I think that should probably fix the issue. And I'll probably try it on kind of as I go and see if I want to do a full 5cm fold or if I want to do a 4.5. I mean, 0.5 centimetre isn't that much, but sometimes it is just that little bit between it sort of being like and it being fine. But otherwise, very, very happy with how this is turning out. So I need to get this ribbing done first because obviously I've still got a needle in here, and then I can move on to getting through some of the other bits and bobs on this. So yeah, let's get this sleeve finished. Actually, I might pull this back first. Yeah, let's pull this neckband back and get this sleeve finished, and then start the 2nd sleeve before lunch. Fingers crossed. neckband is off, which means I have one less ball of yarn attached to this project, and I now only have one ball attached, because I'm just gonna do the ribbing on the end of this sleeve. So I've got 7 centimeters of 1x1 rib to do, and yeah, hopefully that won't take me too long. One other thing that I did forget to mention, so in the pattern it says to do an increase round after finishing your colour work before starting your ribbing, and I believe that's because the 1x1 half twisted rib that they have in the pattern is quite tight compared to the like 1x1 rib that I've got that is incredibly stretchy. So I did not do that increase round, I just went straight into 1x1 rib with the same amount of stitches that I had for the body piece. So yeah, it doesn't seem to have caused any problems. This is super stretchy. So yeah, I think that having the increase would probably have made it look a bit funny, but this seems to be absolutely fine. And I'm gonna be able to block it out to be the same width as the rest of the jumper. So yeah, omitted the increase round because I changed the ribbing. But yeah, now I'm gonna finish the ribbing on this sleeve and hopefully pick up the other one. Everybody, it is Thursday. I think the last time I checked in with you was Monday. I think I was just working on sleeves, but very exciting. I have pretty much finished the knitting portion. So this is what we're looking like. I finished both sleeves and I re-knit the neckband. I didn't really want to bother showing you me doing that because, to be perfectly honest, it's just me knitting 1x1 rib, which is pretty dull. So I went up to the 4.5mm needle, and I think this is looking much better. It's so much wider now, it's just sitting so much nicer. I will show you what it looks like, but before I do that, I am going to get it folded down and secured down, because I like to do that whilst I'm knitting instead of like binding off and then sewing it down, because I just think it gives me a much more stretchy neckline. And so I'll show you guys how I do that, because I think a couple of people have asked for it, and yeah, I might as well show it to you. But I did the tubular bind offs on the bottoms of the sleeves. I think I'd shown you the fact that I'd finished the body. I can't quite remember, but I did, and I did all of the ribbing and everything, and I finished off the second sleeve, and yeah. So I am going to get the neckline cast off, and then I'm gonna do the duplicate stitch on the back for the tops of the shoulders, just to finish off this wave, just to kind of get that looking a little bit more cohesive. And then I need to do the fix to kind of sort out whatever's going on here in the back, so I'll show you guys how I do that as well. And then we can kind of finally get this in the bath and getting it washed and blocked, and I'm so desperately wanting to get that done today so that I can get this washed and ready to go so that I can wear it over the next couple of weeks. Okay, so to get my neckbands really, really stretchy without having to cast off and then sew down my neckbands, I like to pick up a stitch from this first row of the rib that I've knit here. So my first stitch in my ribbing would have been a knit stitch, and so I'm going to pick up this bar at the bottom of the wrong side of that knit stitch, and that is the first knit stitch that I knit on the ribbing. So I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to put it on my left hand needle in front of the first stitch that I would knit on this row of the ribbing, and I'm then just going to knit those two stitches together quite loosely so that I've now bound it to the bottom of the neckband. And then for the purl stitch that I would be purling for this row of ribbing, if I were to knit it normally, I'm just going to knit it on its own, and I'm just going to pass that first stitch over the top as if you were going to bind off normally. And then I will go in again for the next what would be knit stitch and pick up that bar at the bottom of the neckband once again, pop it on my left hand needle, knit it together with the stitch, and then pass the previous stitch over the top to bind off. And I'm making sure that these are quite loose as well. I don't want a tight bind off, but my main thing is that I only attach it on every other stitch so that it's got some space to move and the bind off isn't sort of constricting it so that it's going to be really tight around the neck. So that's how I get my neckbands nice and loose and stretchy without being really kind of like wavy or anything. It might take a couple of tries to kind of get your tension to the point that you want it to be for it to be really stretchy, but I don't know, I've worked on it a couple of times and I found that I don't really need to go up a needle size, but I am quite good at keeping my stitches quite nice and loose. I'm quite a loose knitter, so that does benefit me in doing these, but hopefully that kind of helps, because I know a couple of people have been asking about how I managed to get them quite so stretchy. I did that on this one, and obviously you can see it goes like all the way to my shoulders, but yeah, that's the method that I found is useful. So I'm going to finish binding this off, and then I guess I'll just bring you all back when I have finished binding off and we can do a final try on. Okay, I've just bound off the neckband. It's looking like this. It's super stretchy. So I've got no worries about it going over my head or anything, or like being able to stretch out to its full potential. But I'm going to try this on, and then I'm going to sit down and do the duplicate stitch on the back shoulders so they kind of like match up over the top, and it kind of stops there being this really like jarring line after the pickup for the shoulders. I've not decided what I'm going to do about the neckband, to be honest. I think I might just leave it. I did ask in my most recent podcast if you guys thought I should like duplicate stitch into the ribbing, but I think I might leave it, because now that I'm kind of seeing it, I think it's going to look really funny, because obviously the neckband goes off in different angles to the rest of the knitting. But let's try this on, see how it looks pre-blocking, and then I'm going to do that duplicate stitch and then get this into the wash after I've sewn in all the ends, because I so want to wear this. It's so cozy, as well as being sort of fun and spring-like as well, which I really love, because I feel like that's something that's missing in my wardrobe at the moment. Like, I've got things that are cozy and wintry, but they're not in like fun spring colours, which is kind of what I want to be wearing at the moment. Oh, so yeah, neckband goes over the head nicely. Sleeves. These sleeves are so long. But because the colourwork obviously hasn't stretched out, like just pulling this, so yeah, if I let this sit and then if obviously I pull this to like its full width, you can see it kind of coming up. So I'm pretty sure that they're going to be like spot on once I've blocked the whole thing. But oh, I'm so happy with this. This doesn't feel like it's strangling me anymore, which I'm really happy about. Hang on, I've got to let the dog in. Okay, so yeah, this is a bit of a funny look, you know, because it's kind of going in at the bottom, which is really not flattering at all. But I think obviously once that's been blocked, it's going to be fine, because yeah, I blocked it when it was like here, so this bottom stripe wave business hasn't been blocked. But I think the ribbing is going to block out really nicely. Like I said, I don't think it's an issue, the fact that I haven't done that increase at the bottom, because I think it's going to kind of stop it from being really wiggly and baggy at the bottom. So yeah, I'm going to just get this duplicate stitch done and then get my ends sewn in and everything, and then it's going to be time to finally get this washed and blocked, and then I can wear it. So yeah, let's get these final bits done. Oh, I'm so excited! has been done. So I've just rounded out these waves as best I can. This one is still looking a bit flat, but to be honest, I think it's going to be fine once it's on. I don't really think you're going to notice. And it kind of just, it's because it just finishes at the top of where the seam is. So it does go over the seam ever so slightly, but not massively. But to be honest, I think it looks neater than it did. It does look like a continuous wave, so I'm quite happy with that. Please excuse this. This is where all of my projects are currently living. I need to sort out some project bag issues, but you know. So the next thing I need to do is just go in and fix, which side is it? This. So I'm just gonna pick up the float and do a knit stitch. And kind of show you how I would do that. There is another bit that I need to do as well. I think it's on the front. So it's that side. Oh, and this side as well. So this is on the front where it's just kind of come away ever so slightly. But I might do all 4 of the last bits of the waves because this one is sort of also starting to kind of pull a little bit. So I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to sew in my ends, and then this is going in the bath. Finished. I need to angle the camera down so you guys can see. If I scoot the dog off of this chair though, I can stand on it. Scooch over. Good. So this is what the final jumper looks like on. I do also have some B-roll which I'll put in a minute, which is much easier to see than me standing on a chair. But here we are, all finished. all blocked. As you can see, the sleeves are still pretty long, but to be honest, I think I spoke about this. I wanted them to be quite long because I do suffer from getting very cold hands, and like I can just fold them up. So yeah, I can just do that. Obviously haven't trimmed my ends because I never do that. I never trim my ends. So, you know. So yeah, I can just fold them up when I like need to do something, but they're quite nice for keeping my hands nice and warm. So that is an absolute joy. Obviously didn't do the duplicate stitch into the ribbing because after looking back at your comments on my previous podcast and like obviously looking at this now, and I think I spoke about this as well whilst I was doing it, I just think it's going to look a bit funny. But the duplicate stitch on the back is looking so much better. I'm really glad that I went in and did that so that it looks a little bit more kind of fluid and you can't really see the seam as much when you're not like right up close. So yeah, I'm very happy with how that's turned out. And also all of the like gappy bits where I attached the sleeves have all gone. So happy with how this has turned out. I think the neckline has blocked out beautifully. I'm glad I didn't do the increase on the bottom because I think that this is the perfect width for the ribbing. So yeah, if you are gonna knit this and you change your ribbing to the 1x1 rib, then just go down half a needle size like I did and don't do that increase round, and you should be fine. So yeah, I am so happy with how this turned out. So now that this is done, I have realised that I haven't been the best at keeping you all up to date with all of the maths and everything that I've done. So I'm going to put in a slide in now, and I'm also going to have this down in my Ravelry project notes, which will be linked down in the description box for you. So here is the slide with all of the maths that I did to turn this from a raglan into a drop shoulder. So hopefully you guys can kind of screenshot that if you want to, if you don't use Ravelry, and if you did want to sort of knit this yourself and turn it into a drop shoulder instead of a raglan. Obviously you can alter the sleeve length and everything if you didn't want them to be this long, because mine are, like I say, quite long, but that's what I like, so that's how I knit mine. But yes, I do also have some final stats on this jumper. So I, as you will have seen, cast this version on March the 11th, and I cast it off on April the 3rd. So it took me a grand total of 24 days to knit. That doesn't include all of the maths and everything that I did, because I technically started this on March the 1st for the first time. So yeah, that's just the time it took me to knit this specific version. I used Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool in the colours Ballerina and Time. I don't think I actually mentioned that at the beginning of the video, so I do apologise, but yeah, I used Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool, and I used in total 7 balls of the Ballerina and 5 balls of the Time. So I ended up using 326 grams of the Ballerina and 206 grams of the Time. So the full overall weight of my jumper is 532 grams. Which actually is still pretty lightweight for such a big jumper because this is knit at such a big gauge. But I am so happy with how this fits. I think it is such a nice jumper. It is not too hot to wear at the moment because it's still quite windy, but it does hold up quite well in the wind. So yeah, I'm just so happy with how it turned out, and I hope that maybe it kind of gives you guys the information that you need if you wanted to also turn this jumper into a drop shoulder or any other jumper. It should hopefully work for most. I think I'll definitely be using the maths again to try kind of change up any others that I want to change from a drop shoulder, from a raglan into a drop shoulder. But yes, thank you all so much for coming along on this journey with me. I know that it's not been the best project vlog, but hopefully it's kind of, I don't know, made some sense, and I've definitely got a lot of room for improvement, but I do want to film more of these in the future, so hopefully I can just get a little bit better each time. But yeah, if you've liked this video, please do feel free to give it a like. If this is the first video of mine that you have found, then please do consider subscribing, and I will catch up with you all next week with another podcast. Happy making!